Hello, now it's time for us to do our math review on decimals. A couple of things I want to remind you of before we begin is this isn't any different than any of the multiplying, dividing you've done before, other than you need to figure out where to put the decimal at the end. For the most part, you can ignore the decimals while you're doing the adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing. You just have to know where to line them up at the beginning if you need to, and you need to know how to figure out how far over to put a decimal once you're done. If you can do those things, you're going to be fine. So to start, 128.9 take away 26.4. While you're doing this, you should be thinking, okay, this is a subtraction question, and that means I need to line up decimals. So just kind of do that first, and then put the numbers where they fit after that. The next thing you should be doing, because remember we're talking about our answers have to be reasonable. If we're making mistakes and our answers are way out to left field, we should notice that. And even if we don't know how to fix it, you should at least be able to tell me, after doing this, I know my answer's unreasonable. 128, 26.4, 28 and 26 are close. So when I have 28 and I take away 26, it's going to be almost all of it. So if I have 128 and I take away 26, I know I'm going to be real close to 100 left over. So with the decimals lined up, I just do regular subtraction, kind of one above the other. 9 take away 4 is 5. 8 take away 6 is 2. 2 take away 2 is 0. And 1 take away nothing is 1. And now where's the decimal go? For subtraction, it goes straight down as long as you've lined them up. So that's a simple one for number one, nothing too complicated. The only time you might see something a little trickier than that is if they had a different number of decimals. So let's say instead I had 129, or let's just do 129.3, take away 48.25. For subtraction, you still need to line up those decimals. So let's say we're left with a spot. It doesn't make sense. I line up my decimals here, and then I end up with a weird spot where there's no number. You just put a 0 there. And then you worry about the subtraction the same way you normally would. If you use like a method with borrowing, then you're going to have to borrow because you can't take 5 away from nothing unless we're going into negative numbers, which we're not. So that becomes a 2. Actually, that 30 becomes a 20. And that's a 10. 10 take away 5 is 5. 20 take away 20, or 2 take away 2, depending on how you look at it, is 0. Decimal goes down. 9 take away 8 is 1. And then, again, you can skip this step if there's a blank spot here, but I'm going to go through the whole borrowing process just to make it clear. That 1 becomes a nothing. 12 take away 4 is 8. I could have skipped that step directly just seeing the 1 and the 2 here, going 12 take away 4 if I wanted to. But again, this was your homework question. This one was not. This was just to show what would happen if you had to line up decimals and it looked a little funny. So question 2 is a multiplying question. 12.6 times 2.34. For multiplying, you do not have to line them up. You don't have to line up the decimals. You can figure them out later, and you can treat this just like you normally would. Oh, I have a baby crying. Hold on a second. Okay, so like I was saying, you don't need to line up the decimals because we're going to count the decimal places at the end. If you hear a baby meowing in the background, then try to ignore it. So right now, we just do multiplying as if there was no decimals there at all. And again, there are 2 methods. I will show you both. 4 times 6 is 24. You can carry the 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 2 is 10. Carry the 1 up there. 4 times 1 is 4. Plus another 1 is 5. Then we just leave this spot here blank. 3 times 6 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. And 3 times 1 is 3. And then there's one more spot, so we leave this spot blank and this spot blank. Go 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4. Plus 1 is 5. And 2 times 1 is 2. And then you add 4. 0 and 8 is 8. 5 and 7 is 12, and 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 5 and 3 and 8 is 1 is 9 and 2. So you have 2, 9, 4, 8, 4. Now, looking at this, there are two ways you can find the decimal. The first is the Sweeney way, and you can just count the number of places that are behind the decimal in the question, and that's 1, 2, 3. So I would go 1, 2, 3 and have 3 decimals. That's one way. The other way might be just to quickly, like off to the side, look at what these numbers are almost, and do some multiplying. 12.6, that's, I don't know, almost 13. And 2.3 is a little bit more than 2, so let's just call it 2. Again, this doesn't have to be precise, it's just close. 2 times 13, I know that's 26. So this number should be close to 26, around 26. If you look at this without the decimals, place in, 29,000 is not close to 26. If I put the decimal here, 2,000 is not close to 26. If I put it here, 294 is not close to 26. But if I put it right here where it belongs, 29, that is close to 26. So that's the two ways you can figure out where the decimal goes. Another thing to think about when you're doing 12.6 and 2.34 is you could multiply it a different way. I multiply like this. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 20 is 80. 4 times 100 is 400. 30 times 6 is 180. I'll make that clear. Sorry, 30 times 6 is 180. 30 times 20 is 600. And 30 times 100 is 3,000. And then there's the last one. 200 times 6 is 1,200. 200 times 20 is 4,000. And 200 times 100 is a 2 with 4 zeros. And then you just add these numbers up. And this is actually how I do my multiplying. I know some of you guys hate it. Some of you guys don't appreciate it at all. I really like it. So when I add all these numbers up, let me just try and see if I can shrink this thing down. We'll move it over. So now we have 4. 2 and 8 is 10, and 8 is 18. Carry the 1. 4 and 1 is 5, 6, 12, 14. Carry the 1. 7, 8, 9. And then another 2. And you see, we end up with the same number. And now I use either one of those two decimal rules again to kind of figure out what's going on. It's either going to be... Oh, how you doing, bud? Sorry, I got a baby yanked on my pants. It's either going to be that there's 3 decimals. I don't think he likes math. 1 second. So, I think the crisis is averted. All of the mess that has since been added has been drawn by a baby, and that has cheered him up. But, if you look right now, oh, don't touch, buddy. And you're going to draw on it. If you need to find the decimal places, you need to count the number in the question, like we did before, to get 3 of them. Which would put it right, not right there, right there. Or you can do the estimating again, where you do almost 3 times almost 13, or sorry, almost 2 times almost 13 is 26. All right, you can scribble for 2 seconds. Go. There you go, buddy. Yeah, you're winning. Yeah. So the next question is 12.4 divided by 0.4, which means that you have to know how to write that down first in terms of long division in order to make that work for you. 12.4 is inside. 0.4 is outside. Now, we talked about the different ways you can do this. And I'm going to show one way because I think it's the most efficient way. And honestly, by this stage of grade 8, it's probably the stage you're going to want to be at, just because it's a little bit easier to start to do in your head. It's a little bit easier to start to do without too much kind of mental stress. And that's to get rid of the decimal over here. And you can do that as long as you move the decimal the same number of places on both sides. So effectively what I want to do is I want to change that 0.4 to a 4 and have the decimal there, which means I moved it one this way, which means I really multiplied that number by 10. And I can get away with multiplying this number by 10 as well, to do that. As long as I multiply by 10 on both sides, I'll be all right. So 12.4 times 10 is 124. So you can look at it in two ways. If you really have a keen number sense, it's that I multiplied both by 10. And that doesn't change the relationship between the two of them in terms of division. If you don't have a keen number sense and that just confuses you, just remember you can get away with moving the decimal the same number of places on both sides to make the question easier to handle. So now we have a decimal over here at 124, we have a decimal here, and now it's easier. Now we just do it the way we normally would with the decimal going straight up. So 4 goes into 1, it doesn't. That's a 0. 0 times 4 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. Bring down that 2. If you want to skip this step, I'm totally fine with it. If you want to kind of begin here, that's okay. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 4 times 3 is 12. We'll do that subtraction and put 0. Bring down that 4. 4 goes into 4 once. So now we're at 31. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract it out, we end up with 0. And that's that. That'd be our remainder. So, if you want to do a dividing question the easiest way, I suggest doing it that way. I mean, you could leave that decimal there and then start playing around with the idea of trying to estimate where that is. But again, a lot of you guys found that more difficult with division. And this is probably the most efficient way. So this is how I would do it if I were doing your homework.